So the next article I wanted to look at is titled, Deanna Lorraine Now Says the Capitol Insurrection Was a False Flag. This is on rightwingwatch.org by Kyle Mantilla. Now, a while back, we talked about Deanna Lorraine. She had some really interesting things to say, and she keeps flip-flopping. So after the January 6th events, she released this clip.
It is time that we up-level. It's time that we level up our show of force. And for those wussies that are sitting at home right now, that are watching their Fox News and CNN and watching their social media, and you pretend like you're a conservative, you pretend like you're Republican, and you're pretending like you're fighting the commies, and for you to sit there and buy into this MSM narrative, hook, line, and sinker, that we were so inappropriate and so embarrassing to you guys, and you are disgusted by our display, you were never a real patriot. You should be ashamed of yourself. How dare you throw these patriots that have been there all day yesterday and fighting the real commies? We're the ones at war fighting for you guys. How dare you say that you're ashamed of us? What kind of a patriot are you?
That's fascinating, right? So she was actually endorsing the events that took place. I think that this clip was made like January 7th or January 8th or something like that. It was like immediately after the January 6th events. And here she sits endorsing it, right? Not long after that. I mean, recently, I released a clip on my main channel of her kind of flipping on it. So after she endorsed it, then she had this to say.
I, for one, am sick of just looking at clues and taking guesses and kind of following down a rabbit hole.
Now, remember, this woman is one of the leaders of the QAnon movement. One of the leaders of the QAnon movement. And she's saying this.
Where it leads to nothing. And there's just a lot of broken promises that are not delivered. There is a lot of hopium that never gets fulfilled.
She's talking about the QAnon movement right now. She is backtracking on her support of QAnon currently. And not just QAnon. Of Donald Trump. This is a big fucking deal.
And I want to, you can hope for something to happen and pray for a miracle to happen for a country, but you can also look at the facts in front of us today and the reality and be grounded in that reality. But we shouldn't be blindly following anything or anyone, especially when there's no evidence for that plan ever materializing, right? We can point, and every time that this plan was supposed to happen or Trump was supposedly playing 5D chess and supposedly setting traps or about to do this, at no point in the last 4 years has that trap ever been closed. Has the chess move ever been checkmated by Trump? None of these hopes and ideas have ever been fulfilled. Not one.
That's a big deal. She just completely backtracked. So she started out endorsing the January 6th events and then backtracked to condemn QAnon and Trump, both. So after all of that, now she releases a new clip. So let's see what she had to say in her latest clip. Needless to say, those previous two clips I put together, they were heavily edited. If you want the full context, you need to go to the originals, which can be found in the link in the description of this video. It will link you to this Right Wing Watch article, and both of those clips are there in their entirety. But for the sake of time, I tried to condense them down and put in some crossfade transitions to kind of meld them together. And I was doing my best to preserve the original context. I was not trying to take her out of context in any sense. If you're wondering what the original clips looked like, then just go to the link in the description and watch the originals. But this one, I don't think I edited this one at all. So let's watch this latest clip from Deanna Lorraine and see what she had to say next.
This plan was cooked up. I mean, obviously all the markings of a trap, of a false flag. A lot of us fell for it. We thought it was innocent. We went there. We wanted to, fight for our President Trump.
She's talking about the January 6th events, in case you were unaware. She's saying the January 6th events were a false flag. She has made some real transitions here, hasn't she?
And put pressure on them for the vote. But now they're using this as, okay, everyone who's a Trump supporter, anyone who's a conservative, anyone who has any ties to the NRA or any guns rights group, for God's sakes, is going to be branded a domestic terrorist. And that gives them free reign to punish us however they see fit. And that's the terrifying thing.
Okay, now, that's an interesting point, what she's saying here. So she's basically making the point that the U.S. government is going to use those events as an opportunity to basically do a new Patriot Act, right? Like after the events of 9/11, the Patriot Act was used to broadly spy on everybody in the U.S. and all kinds of other disturbing shit. And the Patriot Act is wrong, genuinely wrong. Now she's saying all of the people who participated in the January 6th events, they have basically lost their freedoms because the FBI is showing up to their houses and arresting them and getting location data from their phones and all kinds of other things like that. Now, I get the point that she's making here, but I don't feel like the government has done any serious overreach. Let's just assume for a second here that these people really are what you would call domestic terrorists, okay? Let's say that this was like a crazy vegan group. I'm trying to pick a left-wing group here. Let's say it was a group of left-wing vegans who did this, and it was in the name of Joe Biden, and they broke into the Capitol and tried to hunt down Congress and the whole 9 yards, right? If the FBI showed up to their houses and started arresting them, would you have a problem with that, Deanna Lorraine? Would you have a problem with that? Is it only because the people who did it were on your side? Is that the only reason that there's a problem right now? I feel like there's a double standard. Simultaneously, not only is there a double standard, but also she says it was a false flag. How can it be both? She knows that these were Trump supporters that broke in there. She openly said it on the 7th and the 8th. And I think she was even there. I don't remember if she said she was or not. How can she possibly believe this was a false flag and simultaneously believe that these people are being mistreated, the people who actually did go in are being mistreated by the FBI or whatever? If these people are domestic terrorists, the FBI is completely in their rights to arrest them for that. Now, if they try to push forward a bill in Congress that limits our rights, like a new Patriot Act, I'm going to have a problem with that, and I will be on her side through that fight. But guess what? The Patriot Act already exists. They don't need to make a new one. We already have it, sadly. So I don't really worry about them trying to push through a new Patriot Act. They already have everything they want. They spy on us without warrants, and there's no recourse, unfortunately. You're just not happy that your friends are being targeted right now because of something really stupid and fucked up that they did. Let's keep listening.
Free reign to punish us however they see fit, and that's the terrifying thing.
Not however they see fit. They are not being punished however the government sees fit. They're being punished by the standards outlined in the law. That's not just however they see fit, whatever, you know. Suddenly these people are arrested by the FBI and the FBI can do just whatever they want with them now. It's not like that. They have to go through the judicial system. They have to sit in jail and stand trial and get a lawyer and the whole 9 yards. That's what has to happen now. That's not however they see fit.
Ban us from free speech platforms, ban us from polite society, fire us, imprison us, lock us up, and throw away the key.
Wait, is the government doing all of that? I didn't hear the government was doing all of that. Is she talking about... So the government is only doing the imprisoning part if they actually broke a law. The rest of that stuff is being done by private companies, Twitter, Facebook, so on and so forth. If they're acting like domestic terrorists on social media platforms, I'm okay with them being removed, really. If they are calling for violence and stuff, which a lot of them are, like I have clips and videos and screenshots of them saying genuinely horrific stuff, like really calling for violence, like not pretend, but actually calling for violence, I'm okay with them being removed from social media for that. That's my bar. If they're propagandizing in such a way that it will lead to violence, even in a stochastic way, I'm okay with them being removed from social media. And if they break laws, I'm okay with them being imprisoned for that too. I mean, if they break free speech laws, which do exist, if they yell fire in a crowded theater, for example, I'm okay with them being imprisoned for that too. If you don't like the consequences of your actions, then don't fucking do it. It's that simple.
I mean, that's what they're doing right now, and it's terrifying. And the worst part about it is our fellow Americans are so indoctrinated by this that they're cheering it on. They're cheering on us losing our jobs or getting thrown in prison because, of course, we're domestic terrorists.
If you do something that is an act of domestic terror, I am going to cheer you on as you go to prison. I am going to clap when the FBI knocks on your door. I am going to be happy that Twitter bans your account. That's correct. If you do something that is against the law or calls for violence in some way, I'm okay with you being removed from social media and polite society. Yeah, 100%. Get fired if you're calling for violence. Yes, we need that. We don't need people in positions of power and influence calling for violence. How can anybody defend that in good conscience? Seriously. We can sit up here and debate all day, every day, about any subject you want. I am so fucking down. Talk about tax cuts. Republicans, I think you're wrong about tax cuts. I think you're wrong about being pro-life. But we'll fucking debate it, man. Let's talk about it. Let's talk this shit through. The moment you start calling for violence, the discussion is over. That is an unacceptable line in my mind. I don't know where her head is at if she is trying to defend something like this. Where is your head, Deanna Lorraine? Seriously. That's not where the story ends. There's an article about it on the Friendly Atheist website, written by Beth Stoneburner, and the title is Conspiracist, the Capitol Riot was a false flag to trap Trump supporters. So let's give the article a read and see what it says. Conservative activist and conspiracy theorist Deanna Lorraine, who recently said she wouldn't get a COVID vaccine even if Jesus were to take it, was at one point showing signs of seeing the light regarding the falsehoods of QAnon. It seems she's refilled her Kool-Aid cup by insisting that the insurrection was just a trap to further persecute Trump supporters. What is with the persecution complex, man? Seriously, give me a break. She made the comments during an interview on the Pete Santilli show. This is a quote from the video we just watched. It had all the markings of a trap, of a false flag. But now they're using this as everyone who's a Trump supporter, anyone who's conservative, anyone who has any ties to the NRA or any guns rights group, for God's sake, is going to be branded a domestic terrorist. This is Beth Stoneburner speaking now. These people barged into a federal building with weapons, threatened several employees by name, and clearly could have done more damage if not for the courage of certain officers and their own inability to brag about their crimes. If that's not a form of terrorism, what is? 100% agree. It is. That's exactly what it is. Pretending that that's not exactly what happened is just deluding yourself. Truly. This is back to the clip that we just watched. This is a quote from it. Ban us from the polite society, fire us, imprison us, lock us up, and throw away the key. That's what they're doing right now, and it's terrifying. Shouldn't be terrifying if you're not breaking the law. Shouldn't be terrifying if you're not calling for violence. No joke. I mean, there are consequences to calling for violence or breaking the law. If you don't want to face those consequences, if they scare the shit out of you, then don't fucking do it. That's simple, right? This is a quote again. They're cheering on us losing our jobs or getting thrown in prison because, of course, we're domestic terrorists and we're violent. And, of course, they should cheer that on. It's dangerous at this point. It's unbelievable. If you are genuinely afraid of that, then don't be a domestic terrorist. It's that straightforward. Seriously. This is Beth Stoneburner speaking. Yes, it is worth cheering on businesses protecting their reputations by firing their terrorist employees. Glad we agree. I'm sure it's terrifying to have everything you thought was true suddenly proven to be a lie. That leaves a person with only two choices. Embrace reality or double down even harder on the lies because it's easier than admitting you were wrong. This is Beth Stoneburner again. Embracing reality is tough. It involves humility and making amends. It means acknowledging your mistakes. No wonder Lorraine is going down the other path. Which, interestingly enough, is something we've seen a lot of pastors do recently. We saw a lot of denying that COVID was a problem at first. You remember back in January of 2020, February is when it really started to hit and the stock market sunk. Back then, January and February, there were rumors. And a lot of these pastors, John MacArthur, Johnny Enlow, all of these other guys, these other evangelical nutcases, they refused to acknowledge that it was a problem at the time. And I got to be honest, I didn't think it was going to be a problem at the time either. Back in January, it seemed like everybody was getting pretty revved up and afraid over nothing at the time, because we had no real data or information about how serious this really was. Turns out, it had been hidden from public view for months and months. Not by this country in the U.S., but by other countries. As time passed, it became more and more clear how serious this situation was. It was undeniable. But a lot of these pastors refused to admit it. They went down with the ship and got people killed as a result. Don't be like that. Be willing to admit your mistakes. Something that I had to learn when I became an adult, something that everybody should have to learn at some point when they reach adulthood. 2 things. The ability to say, I don't know. If you really don't know something, just say it. There is no shame in not knowing. There is shame in claiming to know something that you really don't. So learn to say, I don't know, and learn to admit when you're wrong. It's not that big of a deal.